ושלום עלינו והכל עבור ישראל יבוא אמן.
Hazak uvarok. Good morning, everyone. Shir Hashirim, Be'ezrat Hashem, this afternoon will be at 5:05, followed by Mincha at 5:20. Candlelighting is at 5:22. Again, 5:05 Shir Hashirim, 5:20 Mincha, 5:22 candlelighting. We'd like to thank Torah Anytime as well as shul.com as well as Sharei Ezra for today's shiur. Today is Vav Tevet Tavshin Pei Gimel. Today is the Yartzeit of many tzaddikim tzidkaniyot, most notably that of Reb Matatyahu ben Reb Shmuel Strashon, known as the Mechaber of the Sefer Mitet Ka, as well as Rabbi Cheskel Shagel ben Reb Chaim Habersham Mishineva, the Divrei Cheskel, very big tzaddikim. Both of them were a great light not only for their keilah, but also for their parents. Both of them had very illustrious fathers, and they themselves also were very big tzaddikim as well. So obviously that takes a lot if a person is able to grow out of the shadow of their father and become great as well. Like I heard one time when it says, Vayetze Yaakov, when Yaakov left, Pana Ziva Pana Hadara, he left with all the beauty and glory. So everyone is bothered by why is Rashi saying specifically over here? We find Yitzchak also left from many other places. Why Dafka over here? The answer is because Yaakov, when he left from the presence of Yitzchak and Rivka, and even that was felt, even though you would say that, listen, he's in the presence of great people, how could it be that that would be felt if he, the answer is, even that was a loss because he also brought luster to his family, and that's something as well that you should always make sure to endeavor to grow out of your family's very big shadow and become great yourself. The halacha is that when we discuss different items when it comes to making berachot, so you have to be very aware of how the item is made, what the ingredients are, and we talked about having specifically health bars that, according to Maran, you make a borei pri ha'etz because you could tell it's crushed dates. So what would be about halava? Halava, right? It's made out of crushed shumshimim, crushed sesame seeds. Technically, everyone knows it's crushed sesame seeds. So, and you see it's a very thick powder. You see it's a thick block. Obviously, it's something that I know. It's sesame seeds. Yes, it's crushed. But would Maran say the same thing as well? And the bracha would retain itself. In this case, be borei pri adama. Would it be a borei pri adama as well? So we discussed previously, if something has a great mixture of, let's say, water or, let's say, other items, specifically in this case, they add a lot of sugar to the halava. So in that case then, since technically you could see the item, however, it's added with other additives, other ingredients, therefore it becomes batel to the other ingredients and becomes an absolute she'akol. So it's a very interesting case, even though you can clearly identify it's crushed sesame seeds, and you would argue and say it should be a borei pri adama. Even in that case, Maram would agree, since most of it is sugar and or most of it is other ingredients, it will become a she'akol niyeh b'dvaro in that specific case, and that would be, in that case, we would say that. Another question that people have is, when it comes to lemons, what bracha do you make on a lemon? So this is very interesting. There's 3 madregot. Madregat number, I guess you could say 0, bottom level is, which is you don't make a bracha at all. That's talking about super duper puckery, something that is like literally your mouth is on fire. So there you get no benefit from there. So since you get no benefit from that, you don't even make a bracha. A bracha is only when you're deriving benefit. So in that case, the doctor tells you need to have some tea with some lemon or something. He tells you need to suck on a lemon, and the lemon is very, very, very powerful, very tart, and you don't enjoy it at all, you do not make a bracha. However, if you were to have, let's say, a lemon that's not so tart, it has a little bit of a kick, so it's kind of edible. In that case, you make a she'akol, because you're kind of enjoying it, bless you, but not enjoying it enough that you should make the bracha borei pri ha'etz. However, says Yakut Yosef, if you were to sprinkle sugar on top of the lemon, now the lemon became edible. Although it became edible by something else, talking about a little coating of sugar, then you make a borei pri ha'etz. So it's literally, it's like you're like, I don't want to use the term, but you're making it like, I'm sorry I'm using the term, but otherwise people may not understand. They use the term baptizing, right? So you change it from that. They say a story one time that one Jew, he came to the priest, Rahman al-Tzan, he says, you know what, I want to become Rahman al-Tzan from your religion. So he says, okay, bless you. So he says, so we're going to have to sprinkle the water on you. He says, okay, fine. So you sprinkle the water on him. Okay, now you're a Christian. He goes, okay, fine, that's it. What do I need to do? Nothing, you're a Christian. He says, okay, great. A few days later, the priest is walking by, and he sees the Jew is eating meat on one of their Fridays, Black Friday or Lent Friday or something. He says, what are you doing? You can't eat that in our religion, you can't eat meat on Friday. He says, what are you talking about? I sprinkled water on it, and I said, it's fish. So it's the same thing, right? You know, just because you sprinkle water on it, somehow magically becomes, like, what does that even mean? So the same thing too. Over here, excuse me, you're sprinkling the sugar on top of the lemon, you're actually making it literally, Bare Shakol, not a Shakol Yabidra, Bare Bereit, it's becoming edible. You're actually in halacha, you're making it something that would be very pleasant for you. The Kaf HaChaim brings from the Chida an unbelievable thing. It says, Ezrat Avotenu. Ezrat is the gematria of 667. Says the Kaf HaChaim from the Chida. He says, in Shemona Esrei, there's 26 Azkarot of Hashem. Different times they have Hashem, Elokeinu, 26 times. He says, in Shemona Esrei, those 26 correspond to when you're saying them, the 26 is you're trying to invoke Hashem's Rachamim, so it's 26 times 26. He says 26 times 26 for the mathematicians in the room. He says 26 times 26 equals 676. That's off by one of 677. He says that's what we say, Ezrat Avotenu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you should help me when I mention now Shemona Esrei, 26 to 26. All of those numbers I should get, I should nail them properly, so I should have a very, very powerful day. Again, this idea of preparing yourself for Shemona Esrei. Just two more ideas with this to conclude. That Tzavtan Paneach, he brings down, when it comes to tefillah, a person when they're tovel and they go into the mikveh, which is obviously a very good thing, if you can, you should at least go every day, or if not that, you should go at least for Shabbat, if not that, for Yom Tovim, Chagim, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, something, you got to do something. So they say that when it comes to tefillah, the question is like this. How does tefillah work? When you go into the mikveh and then you come out, is it that it removed the tumah, it just somehow magically took away the tumah? Or we say no, it has nothing to do with removing tumah. It makes you holy. Different. In other words, it actually adds something to you. So what's the nafkamina? What's the difference in that? He says like this. If you need to have kavanah when you go into the mikveh. Why? If you say it's in order for me to have kedusha, the only way you can have kedusha is if you allow it to happen to you. It can't just happen by itself. You have to allow it. You have to have kavanah for that. But if it's coming to remove something, so that thing, the item is removed. You don't need kavanah for that. So that would be a nafkamina if you have to have kavanah when you're going to the mikveh or not. Just one final idea with this will conclude. It says that when Yaakov was presenting himself in front of Paro, so Paro told him, wow, how old are you? And he says, oh, the amount of time that I lived here on this earth, me'at vera'im, is so small and so bad. And Paro says, give me a bracha. Parenthetically, some people say the bracha Yaakov gave is to this day. The Nile River is the only river on planet Earth. There's two other rivers, one's in Jacksonville and one's in Oregon. You can look this up if you don't believe it. That the Nile River is the only river on planet Earth that goes from south up north. Every river on planet Earth starts up from some area, and they don't know why. It always goes from wherever it is, from north going south. Except for the Nile is the longest river on planet Earth that goes from south up north, from parts of Sudan all the way up into the Mediterranean. The only river. So they say that's the Beracha Yaakov Avinu gave, that it was a unique Beracha, a very unique river specifically for there. So it says that when Paro got the Beracha, the Midrash tells us that since Yaakov said the words, Ma'at vera'im, I had such a very bad life, he was punished for those words. Ask Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, his Yortzeit was a few days ago, he says, I don't understand. Really, every one of the Avot should have been living at least 180 or 175 years. But if you take the words of that pasuk, it literally deducts from Yaakov's life, including the words of when he presented himself in front of Paro, and he said the words, Ma'at vera'im. Ask Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, ze lo fair, as they say in Hebrew. It's not fair. How could that be? How could that be that preceding all those words also deducted from his life? It should have just been a few years, Ma'at vera'im, and that's it. Why also that? The answer is because he presented himself looking like it was Ma'at vera'im. And when you present yourself looking a certain way, that gives off a certain vibe, and that certain vibe, unfortunately, Paro picked up on that. And in some minute way, it made a chilul Hashem, which shows you, like the Bali Musar say, is that your face and your body is a reshut harabim. You have to be very careful that you're very pleasant, very kind, very sweet. Always have a sever panim yafot, always very kind and pleasant, even though you're rotten inside. And we're all going through stuff. But if a person tries as much as possible to give off that vibe that everything is good, everything is great, obviously you make a Kiddush Hashem. Everyone knows everyone's going through different things. But afal pikein, you still at least give off that. And that's the lesson that it could be teaching us, that a person should always have a very happy disposition. So, Bezat Hashem, everyone should make sure to have a happy disposition, and everyone should have a Shabbat Shalom. Rabbi Chanan ben Akasha Omer